Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you many different ways that you can do calculations on your Mac. So if you want to know how to do mathematical calculations on your Mac, I'm going to show you many different ways. Even if you already know a few of these, you may learn of some more that could be useful in specific situations. So first, of course, let's go to the Calculator app. So launch the Calculator app any way you like. Add it to the dock if you use it often. You can use the calculator to do basic and complex calculations. You don't have to use your pointer to click on the numbers there. You can just use the keyboard. So you could just type like this. You can also use parentheses with the keyboard to do more complex things, and then use return or enter as equals. You've got a few different modes for the calculator. You can click here and switch to scientific mode. You can go to programmer mode as well. And if you like reverse pulse notation, you can actually go to that mode as well. You even have a history list that shows you your past calculations, and you can click on one to bring it back. But as many Mac users know, you don't need to use the Calculator app if you just want a quick calculation. You can use Spotlight. The default keyboard shortcut for this is Command Space. That brings up Spotlight Search. But you could just type a mathematical equation in here like this, and it will give you an answer. You can even use parentheses here as well to do more complex calculations. And by the way, when you see the answer either in the Calculator app or here, you can use Command C to copy it. And you can see the little check mark appeared there. And now you can paste it into any app that you're working in. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MACMOST at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Another way to do calculations is to use Siri. You can use the Siri button up here or a keyboard shortcut that you've set. A quick click on this will bring up Type to Siri, and then you can type something like that. And this allows you to use things with parentheses pretty easily, like that. Then press return.
Answer is 51.
And you get the answer. You can also just talk to Siri using Hey and then Siri, depending upon if you've set that up. Or another way to do it is to click and hold here. 3 plus 4.
The answer is 7.
It can be handy to set up voice activation for Siri so you can do quick calculations without having to kind of exit what you're doing and go to a calculation app or mode. Now, a much more recent addition for calculations added in macOS Sequoia is MACMOST. You would primarily use it in the Notes app. So let's go to the Notes app here and create a new note. Now you can type something like this and then equals, and you see it gives you the answer there. Press return and it makes the answer part of the text. You can do all sorts of things here, including using parentheses and using variables like this to get answers, even then changing the values like that. This is a really deep function, and I've got entire videos on just how to use this. But note that you can use the basic calculation functionality of MathNotes just about anywhere that you can type text. For instance, here in Text Edit, you see how I can do basic math like that. I can't use variables, but I can do calculations even using parentheses like this. It works in lots of other apps, particularly ones made by Apple. So you can do it, for instance, here in Pages. But here's a more direct application in Mail. You can use it instead of doing a calculation, getting the result, and then pasting it in. For instance, in this Mail message, I can do something like this. Notice how it even puts the $sign there. It works in Messages as well, like that. Now, of course, Numbers is an app that's completely about doing calculations. It's a full spreadsheet app. So, of course, you can do things like this, creating formulas that access values in other cells to get answers, and then change the values of cells to change the answer. You can have multiple rows, lots of columns, perform really complex things, all using numbers. This course is best used for record keeping, complex calculations, or when you want to set up some sort of sequence of calculations that you can perform over and over again by just changing the values. And likewise, you could use another spreadsheet app as well, like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. But Numbers isn't the only app where you can do spreadsheet calculations. In Pages, you can create a table, and these tables are little spreadsheets. So you could do the same thing here using the equals key to start a formula, clicking on other cells to reference them, using operators like this, and getting an answer, and then being able to change values and see the result changed. This works in Keynote as well. Now, you can also use Safari to do calculations. Matter of fact, this is done so often that Apple's basically just built this in to the URL field at the top. So if I were to type something like this, notice how it gives me a result there. I don't even have to go anywhere. I just get the result. And I can do pretty complex things with parentheses, for instance, like that. But if I press return, what usually will happen is whatever my default search engine is, it's going to go and get me a result from that and bring up a calculator app. This is DuckDuckGo's web app, and Google has a similar thing. And now I can continue to work with this calculator if I like. I can just have that in one browser tab if I like this calculator better than Apple's. Now, there are a lot of scripting and programming tools that either come with your Mac or are provided by Apple. So for instance, let's go to Script Editor. Script Editor is a way to write Apple script code or JavaScript for automation code to automate things on your Mac. But the interface here could also just be an interpreter, just running the lines as you're typing them. So here I've got it set to AppleScript. I can actually type in a calculation like that. Click this button to run the script or just Command R, and you can see the result goes there. And you can get complex with this as well, like that, and run that, and you'll get the result. If I switch to JavaScript, it's going to basically run the same way. Just some of the more complex math functions will differ between AppleScript and JavaScript. So this might not be super useful on its own, but if you're already using AppleScript or JavaScript to do other things, you can incorporate calculations into those workflows. A much more modern way to automate your Mac is to use the Shortcuts app. And you can use shortcuts for simple calculations as well. If you search for calc, you'll see calculate expression. Add that in there and then control click, right click, or two finger click on the parameter there and select ask each time. Now let's go and have it show the result here like that. And this simple little shortcut, if I run it, will prompt me for something, and I could type something complex like this, and it will give me the result. Let's go and name this. I'll just name it calc, and I'll go to the details here. Say I want to add a keyboard shortcut for it. I'll do Control, Option, Command, and Space for that. Even if I don't have shortcuts running, I can use that, and I can do something complex like that and get the answer. I can make this part of a bigger workflow. I can even have what is selected be the input or the clipboard be the input, or instead of show calculation result, it could save it to the clipboard. There's lots of other things you can do to expand on just doing a basic calculation. Apple also provides an app called Swift Playground, which you can get from the App Store for free, and it's an app for teaching you how to use Swift. Once you have that, you can create apps with it, but you can also just create little playgrounds. I'm going to create one here, and then notice how I can use it to type simple calculations and get the result. Now, as you would expect, you can also use Terminal to do some math. Now, just by using Terminal by itself, you're using a shell, in this case, Z shell, you could see here, and you can do math, but it's not really very convenient. You can use echo, but if you just do something like 1 + 1, you're just going to echo that back. You have to get it to interpret it, which means you got to put a $, 2 left parentheses, and then your equation, and then 2 right parentheses to actually get it to interpret what's there. You could do even more complex things to have variables and work with those. But a much easier way to do calculations in Terminal is to use the basic calculator, or BC. Just type those 2 letters there and return, and you enter a different mode where you can just type simple equations like that, or more complex things like this, and get results. You can quit out of here and then do man for manual, and then BC, and then get all of the help information about using BC. There's also a lot of web pages online that teach you how to use it. So a lot you can do with it. It's a full calculator app inside of the Terminal. Also, if you have a programming language installed, then you can use that usually in interpreter mode where it interprets each line. So for instance, you may or may not have Python installed, depending on if it came with something else that you installed or you installed it yourself, or maybe your Mac is old enough that it's still there. You can run Python by typing Python 3 like this, and then you enter the interpreter mode. And here you can do basic calculations like that. Another way you can use calculations is using the JavaScript that's inside of your browser. So in Safari, you first want to turn on developer mode to be able to access the ability to type in JavaScript. So go to Safari settings and then go to advanced and show features for web developers. Once that's on, you will see the developer menu here. So you want to go to web page. A good one to go to is just go to about:blank. That brings up a completely blank web page. Now, if you use Command, Option, and I, it will bring up all of the tools. You want to make sure you select console here at the top. And now you can type at the bottom here, and you can type JavaScript, which includes just typing simple calculations like that. And you could do more complex ones as well and get the result there. Now here's an unusual spot where you could sometimes perform calculations. I hope this becomes more common. I'm using Pixelmator Pro, which is now owned by Apple. And notice if I've got something here, like a shape, I can go to the tools here on the right and say adjust the size. But let's say that I don't know the exact size. Like I want it to match the width of something that's 534 pixels and something next to it that's also 258 pixels, but also 10 pixels in between them. I can type that calculation like that and then press return. And guess what? It performs the calculation right there in the box. So Pixelmator Pro's got this, but it's not the only one. Adobe Photoshop also will perform calculations in here. Unfortunately, it's not that common in other apps. Like you can't do it in Pages, Numbers, or Keynote in the sidebar and similar situations. But hopefully it'll become more common because it's really handy. So there are a whole bunch of different ways to perform calculations on your Mac. Some useful in some situations, some in others. Hope you find this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.